everyone, it's Blake. Welcome in to episode number 63 of our WWE 2021 Save and TEW 2020. This is Smackdown for Week 3 in November, and this is going to be a big episode of Smackdown. I'm very excited about a certain development we're going to have with this one. I think this will be, hopefully, a memorable edition of Smackdown. Hopefully they all are, but at some point, we know some episodes are better than others, but I think you guys will hopefully have some fun with this one, especially considering a big angle we have planned for this one. But there's enough of the tease. Let's get to it. We start with the pre-show. Shinsuke Nakamura gets the win over Jackson Riker, 728, 57 overall. Nothing to write home about here, but we will see more of Nakamura a little bit later on. That's your teaser there, and he will have a spot on the Survivor Series card, which we will get to here in just a bit. But let's get into the main show because this is one that took me a while to put together because I put all the angles in I wanted to put in, the matches, and I realized I had to cut like 15 or 20 minutes. And I'm thinking, oh boy, how am I going to do this? But luckily I made it work. And so hopefully this turns out to be a good edition of SmackDown. Let's jump into it. And it's going to start with the Usos, who we've seen kind of start SmackDown off quite a bit here recently. With all their involvement with Roman Reigns and such, but the Usos are making their way in, and they make their way towards Roman Reigns' locker room. So the assigned locker room for Roman Reigns, the Usos backstage, they start to make their way towards it, and as we remember, we went off the air on the previous SmackDown. I know it's been a while ago now. Everyone's wondering, where is Roman Reigns? And the Usos were walking around, didn't see him at the table. So they had to find him, try to find him backstage. Couldn't do that either. And then eventually we find out after the Rock's exchange with Mick Foley that Reigns is training for this big match at Survivor Series against The Rock. And so that's when we find out Reigns was never in the building anyways. Is he there tonight? Well, let's see, because the Usos make their way into Roman Reigns' locker room. And what do they find? They find The Rock, who is sitting at the table in the locker room, and the Usos are completely caught off guard by this because they are expecting Roman Reigns, and what do you know? It's The Rock that has taken his seat at the table, and this catches the Usos off guard here. They want to know what the hell The Rock's doing in there. Why is he sitting at the table? And The Rock just turns it back to them and says, just like I asked last week, why do you guys keep doing this? Why do you guys keep running around chasing Roman Reigns like a lost puppy dog? Why do you keep doing it? Why are you still doing everything for him after everything he's put you through? Everything. The Rock just wants to know. He wants an answer from him. And Jimmy Uso continues to get angry because remember, we kind of saw that last week. Jimmy getting a little bit angry. He's trying to, kind of counter The Rock here. He's tired of The Rock talking about Roman Reigns, but Jay, meanwhile, not as angry. We can kind of see it in his face. Jay is just sort of thinking, and Jimmy is just angry. He's ready to go at The Rock, but Jay kind of holds him back, and Jay just says, we don't think you should be here right now, and we would advise you to get out of the seat of the head of the table, Roman Reigns. And The Rock just kind of looks at Jimmy and Jay, stands up, and he walks past them. And The Rock just says, think about it. You guys are better than this. I know you. This is not you. And he just walks out. And so that leaves Jimmy very angry. Jay still kind of in thought here. And then we get a little bit of back and forth between Jimmy and Jay. Jimmy wants to know, why is Jay holding him back? He could have took out The Rock right here, and that would have gave Reigns the advantage at Survivor Series. And so Jimmy goes storming out. We've got chaos everywhere, as The Rock is kind of staking his territory here and still wanting to know, what are the Usos doing? Why do they continue to follow Roman Reigns around the way they do? So a great segment here, 85 overall. That continues our story moving forward as we go towards The Rock and Roman Reigns. Much more to come on this episode of SmackDown. And we start things off match-wise with Dakota Kai versus Dana Brooke. Terrible wrestling, but 46. That's one of our probably worst matches we've had that Omos has not been in. But Dakota Kai gets the win, as you would expect. 8:26, top rope splash. This went a little longer than I wanted it to, but we had to kind of put some time into the matches to stay at our 50% threshold there and not go below that, considering what the fans want out of the product or what they expect. So we had to kind of make this a little longer than maybe I wanted to. But Dakota Kai gets the win. The reason why I did this, and you'll see in a second, but she hasn't really, gotten a lot of wins thus far because we have put her in some pretty featured positions. We put her in the match with Bianca Belair not long ago, and some of those. And as we know, there's been a little tension. Speaking of tension, we talked about the Usos and Rock and all that. It's a little tension with Dakota Kai and Alexa Bliss and Raquel Gonzalez. And so after the match, it is Dakota Kai who grabs the mic and says she is going to prove that she is not a third wheel behind Alexa Bliss and Raquel Gonzalez when she gets her rematch against Bianca Belair. Dakota Kai says that the first match was all she needed to understand what she needs to do to beat Belair, and that's exactly what she's going to do in the first round of the Mae Young Classic. So that is your setup here. Just kind of pushing Dakota Kai's motivations now as she moves forward, and trying to prove that, she's not just the person that screwed up, and Alexa Bliss has called her a screw up and all this other stuff for costing them the match, recently and all that. So Dakota Kai is going to get the payback, and she's going to get it by beating the SmackDown's Women's Champion in the first round of the Mae Young Classic. So that's kind of the thought process here. But after that, here comes Toni Storm and Liv Morgan, the Rebels. They're on SmackDown. And remember, the thought was on Raw, we had the call-outs back and forth between these two, and finally when Bliss and Gonzalez says they were not going to go to, they were not going to meet them there. They told them Storm and Morgan just decided, hey, we're going to go to SmackDown. We're going to finish this here. So they show up, and they call out Alexa Bliss and Raquel Gonzalez as Dakota Kai walks out of the ring. But they want to know, where are they? And Dakota Kai just shrugs them off and just keeps walking. And then Storm and Morgan are just in the ring calling out Alexa Bliss and Raquel Gonzalez, but they have no answer. There is no show. And they're just standing in the ring, wondering, here are these two basically telling them to come to SmackDown. They do. They're nowhere to be found. What's going on with that? Well, we're not going to find out because here come the Iconics. And remember, they had the championship match at No Mercy, have kind of played the background role here in the recent weeks because they are not in the Mae Young Classic, and we know we have a lot to push here. We've got Survivor Series to build towards, and we have the Mae Young Classic to build towards. So we're trying to tie a lot in on these episodes of our television, but so they come out and say, you know what, the Rebels, you don't deserve these spots in the Mae Young Classic, and so they're going to challenge them next week, and that is their deal here. They want to prove that they didn't just show up to get beat down in their first match by Shayna Baszler and Sonya Deville. They are here to be a force on SmackDown, and so they challenge them for next week. So perhaps our first little cross-brand match. You guys know I don't love to do this, but that's at least in the lineup for next week. Iconics versus the Rebels in tag team action on SmackDown. So that is the setup heading into next week. And then, where's Alexa? Where's Raquel? Perhaps we'll find out soon enough. And Sami Zayn, 69, nice segment here, as Mick Foley is backstage in his office, and he thanks Sami Zayn for meeting with him because he wanted to let Sami Zayn know that, he's watched what Steve Austin's been doing on Raw, and he has figured out, hey, Raw has got its big match, its big men's match, multi-man match for Survivor Series, and he's figured out exactly what SmackDown needs for Survivor Series in a multi-man match. And so, Foley says that at Survivor Series, Sami Zayn, with all his conspiracy theories, will have a chance to put those to rest because he's going to get two of the people that he dislikes the most, and there's probably even more than that, but Foley says you'll get your opportunity because it's going to be Sami Zayn, The Miz, The Usos, and Apollo Crews teaming up in a 10-man tag team match to take on John Cena, Damian Priest, as we know, two of Sami Zayn's biggest rivals right now, Ricochet, Jeff Hardy, and Shinsuke Nakamura. So there's another big 10-man tag added to Survivor Series, and Sami Zayn says that's great. He's finally going to prove that he's the best, and all these conspiracies, he says he's gonna pin John Cena and Damian Priest at the same time. That's what Sami Zayn says he's going to do, and he's going to let everyone know once he does it. So Foley then says, well, Sami, you may want to get ready because your new little buddy that you were pushing all your conspiracy theories to last week, Apollo Crews, he's going to be in the main event of SmackDown tonight, and he's going to go one-on-one with John Cena. So that is your setup for the main event. It is going to be John Cena versus Apollo Crews, and Sami Zayn will be in Apollo Crews' corner. Because remember, Zayn's kind of pushing all the conspiracy theories to Crews last week when no one else would listen to him. So that was kind of our setup here. So nice segment, 69 overall, not bad. But more to come, of course, with Sami. And then this is Keith Lee, who says that he's glad that this one-on-one match with Samoa Joe is officially on for Survivor Series for the Intercontinental Championship. And he's going to be watching Samoa Joe tonight because he will face a common opponent. Because last week, Keith Lee showcased his skills against Riddick Moss. And this week, it's going to be Samoa Joe going one-on-one with Riddick Moss. So Lee just sort of sending, a nice little aim here towards his challenger. And says he will be watching closely to see what Samoa Joe does against Riddick Moss. And speaking of that, it is 56, not great, but Riddick Moss not over. He's no Madcap Moss, let's just put it that way. Samoa Joe off his game, that doesn't help either. So subpar wrestling. I don't think we ever say that about Joe, especially with these two. These two are pretty good wrestlers, but not very over. So Joe gets the win. Coquina Clutch does it. And so, we're kind of pushing the fact here. All right, Keith Lee did, he beat Moss. Now Joe beats Moss. Kind of the one-upmanship here. Who can be more impressive? And that's kind of what we've settled on with this. But, big match for the Intercontinental Championship at Survivor Series. We'll get more into that next week on Smackdown. And then we all of a sudden cut to a video, and it's just pure chaos as it is Sonya Deville and Shayna Baszler arriving at the arena earlier, so we're getting footage of what happened earlier in the day. A pull-apart brawl between them and Asuka and Kairi Sane, because as soon as Baszler and Deville make their way in, we see Asuka and Zayn come out of nowhere, and we've just got a pull-apart brawl. Referees, everyone pulling them apart, because remember last week on SmackDown, it was Deville and Baszler attacking these two. We know there will be, first-round interactions now based on the matches in the Mae Young Classic. Asuka gets Becky Lynch. Baszler's opponent yet to be determined, but we also know that it will be Deville and Sane going one-on-one in the first round. So you can probably know where this is headed to, and we'll get to that in just a bit. But yes, this is kind of building towards the tension with all that between these four. So 66, not a bad segment here at all. And then it is Damian Priest, who, with Pat McAfee, and good promo here, 71. Damian Priest, now has learned that he's going to be involved in that match at Survivor Series, teaming up with Cena, Ricochet, Jeff, and Nakamura. And basically, Damian Priest says that he learned a few things from The Rock in their tag team match at No Mercy, and he's going to do exactly what The Rock always says he's going to do. And he's going to take Sami Zayn's conspiracy theories, turn them sideways, and stick them straight up Sami Zayn's candy ass. So Damian Priest channeling his Rock here is what he's trying to do. And he basically, this is just a Priest promo. We need to get him involved on this. So that's just kind of, continuing to push that sort of rivalry between the two, which kind of amped up last week. So, yeah, Damian Priest, nice promo. And then in six-man tag team action, nice little six-man tag here, as it is Drew McIntyre, Jeff, and Ricochet Enigma, as we are calling them. They get the win over Elias, Otis, and Baron Corbin, 8-12, so kind of a short match, but as I said, I had a lot to fit into this episode. 64, not a bad match, but clearly Drew McIntyre head and shoulders above everyone else, 84 overall. Otis off his game, McIntyre looks good, Ricochet still has that hot new move, so good for them. But yeah, this was just kind of a setup to get McIntyre in action here, and we will see McIntyre's opponent, Bray Wyatt, in action also on this episode. So this was kind of a different way. Other than just doing a traditional one-on-one match, having McIntyre squash someone, we put him in six-man tag team action here, which may help Jeff and Ricochet too a little bit with them. So 64, not great, but every episode's different in terms of ratings, so I'll take it. Charlotte Flair is now in the back, and it is Charlotte who takes aim at Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch, and Sasha Banks, of course, on Raw. It was announced that we would have a big 8-woman tag with Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, and Sasha Banks' first-round opponent, a mystery opponent, teaming up at Survivor Series to take on Charlotte, Alexa Bliss, Raquel Gonzalez, and Dakota Kai. So Charlotte takes aim at all three of the opponents that she knows for now, says that she knows she can beat all three of them. She's already beaten them before, and she says she doesn't even care who the fourth person is because she probably has already beaten them too. She is the queen, and she is going to prove that once again she will win the Mae Young Classic, and she will once again be the SmackDown Women's Champion. So that's basically Charlotte calling her shot here, saying that once she wins the Mae Young Classic, she's going to go right after Belair for the title. Perhaps that's her prize. That's kind of what she insinuates here. So, yeah, just a Charlotte promo. Gets a 70, then we'll take that. So we're perfectly fine with that moving forward. And then it is Bray Wyatt in action. As we said, building up for our big Hell in a Cell match at Survivor Series between him and McIntyre. This is just pretty much squash territory with Bray beating Humberto Carrillo in 7-11. The Claw gets it done. 70 overall. I pretty much, if I get anything like a 70 from a Bray Wyatt squash match, I'll take that. So, perfectly fine. With this, we just had McIntyre in action. We get Bray in action. And this is really building towards the post-match here, which involves Bray Wyatt getting the win. He's taking out Humberto. And then here comes Drew McIntyre, who makes his way out. He confronts Bray Wyatt in the ring. Remember, these two cannot touch until Survivor Series. That was set in stone by Mick Foley. And so McIntyre comes in, confronts Wyatt. Wyatt is just laughing. He's doing his evil smile, all of these things, and they're just getting closer and closer to each other. You're wondering, is this just going to completely boil over? Are they going to come to blows? This whole match could be off. And then before they do, the lights start to flicker again. And we've seen this off and on here over the past month or so. Every now and then, the lights start flickering. And once they do, Bray Wyatt just gets this evil smile on his face. He starts doing the evil laugh. Drew McIntyre, not sure what to make of it, but Bray Wyatt seemingly knows what it is. And yet, we have no idea what it could be. So, another little tease. We don't know what this is, but will it play a role in the match at Survivor Series? We will find out. But as always, a great segment between these two. 84 overall. Good stuff here. And then in our main event, it is John Cena getting the win over Apollo Crews. Fantastic heat, great wrestling, 78. We'll take that for a Cena match. Crews is not very over, as we know, but we've talked about it. Crews is kind of an underrated guy. He has good star quality, good numbers and ratings, and his skills. So we haven't really done a whole lot with him since he lost the Intercontinental Championship. But still, I mean, he is someone that we can use in a variety of roles. So I do like that about Crews. But Cena gets the win with the AA. Following the botched interference from Sami Zayn. So Sami tries to help out his pal, and what do you know? Sami essentially costs Apollo Crews the victory. And I don't know how Apollo's going to feel about that, but Sami's so frustrated afterwards that he decides that he's a little angry. And why is he angry? Because he wants to take out his frustration on Cena. So Zayn, Crews, they get on the same page here. Here comes The Miz, and The Miz comes out. And all of a sudden, we've got a 3-on-1. You've got Crews, The Miz, Zayn. They're all attacking John Cena. 72 overall. But here comes the reinforcements. Damian Priest, Jeff Hardy, Ricochet, Nakamura. They come down. They run Zayn, Miz, and Crews out of the ring. So we have, certainly you probably could have seen this as a predictable turn of events here. But we got to get a little bit of the heat on the heels. We do that here. And now we get, these guys coming out to save, knowing that this is our big 10-man tag with these three and the Usos, who are nowhere to be found in this. They got other things to worry about. Damian Priest, Hardy, Ricochet, Nakamura, and Cena. So they come out to make the save. So that's kind of our setup towards another big match on the Survivor Series card with the baby faces here eventually running out the heels. With that. 65, not a great segment, but as I say, it's probably, unfortunately, due to Ricochet. He's not very over no matter what we do. And, so that's just kind of, Nakamura's kind of in the middle too. But, so 65, we'll take it. It's all right. And then we get into the final sequence here and what I think will be the most memorable part of this. One of our most memorable, maybe, angles, moments yet we've had in our series. Maybe the most, really, when you talk about television angles. The Rock comes out, and it is The Rock saying that Mick Foley motivated him. He heard what Foley had to say last week about, Foley making mention that he was a little concerned about The Rock in this match, and that maybe The Rock's underestimating Roman Reigns and putting his career on the line, perhaps not the best move. And so you basically have, Foley questioning Rock, and Rock says he understands it. He gets it. Everyone understands what Roman Reigns is capable of. The Rock gets it more than anyone else. But The Rock says he knows that no matter what Roman Reigns is capable of, The Rock is capable of more. He has always been the true head of the table, and he will prove that at Survivor Series. So this is kind of The Rock reinforcing his belief that he is going to become the Universal Champion at Survivor Series to end this reign of terror from Roman Reigns. And so The Rock says that's all he has to say about that. And then we hear a familiar music hit. And The Rock just turns and realizes exactly who it is, because here comes 100 Stone Cold Steve Austin. We got Stone Cold and The Rock in the ring at the same time on SmackDown in 2021 here. And the crowd is losing their mind, and I'm glad this worked out. I mean, a 100, I was hoping for that. I'm like, if we put Austin and The Rock in the ring at the same time, we better get a 100. And that's exactly what we get here. And this is all about Austin coming in. You know, the crowd's doing their chants. They don't know what to think of this. What a sight this is. Austin and The Rock. And then it is Austin out of nowhere saying, you know what, Rock, I heard everything you just said, but I'm going to be honest with you. I agree with Mick Foley. I question whether you can beat Roman Reigns, because Austin says, I've seen Roman Reigns. I've seen what he's capable of. Roman Reigns has done things that I would have done back, when I was at the top, and things that you would have done too, Rock, when you were back at the top. But he says, you're not at the top anymore. The Roman Reigns is at the top, and whether people like him or not, no one's beating him. No one has beat him. And that he is not sure if The Rock should put his career on the line. He remembers back 18 years ago when these two faced off at WrestleMania. At WrestleMania 19, Austin's last match. And he says he wants to remember that Rock for ending his career, not the Rock that he could see at Survivor Series when Roman Reigns gets done with him. So, I mean, we got the oohs and the ahs from the crowd going, oh, what the hell? Like, this is escalating quickly. So Rock just kind of looks at Austin, gives him a little smile, and says, Steve, I'm glad you remember WrestleMania, because there's something I want to make sure that you remember from that WrestleMania. And Austin's just kind of looking at him, and then from out of nowhere, it is The Rock who hits the rock bottom on Stone Cold Steve Austin right in the middle of the ring, and he gets an 85 here. Because we didn't rate him on microphone or whatever it was. We rated him on in the previous one because, it's more interaction. So The Rock hits the rock bottom on Steve Austin, and then The Rock turns and just walks out of the ring, because The Rock is clearly not liking this. First it's Mick Foley, now it's Steve Austin. Two of his biggest rivals ever, probably his two biggest rivals ever, are now questioning whether he can actually do this at Survivor Series, and The Rock was not going to take it anymore. He's like, you know what? I'm going to hit the rock bottom. He hits it on Steve Austin, walks out of the ring, and as The Rock is walking out, Austin just kind of starts to gather himself, and you could see Austin giving a little bit of a smile as though The Rock got him this time around. But, it's just kind of, that's Austin, what he thinks, and so as we're seeing that exchange with The Rock looking at Austin in the ring, and Austin's kind of like, he got me. Then we see the video, and who is on the video screen? None other than Roman Reigns, who is watching The Rock and Steve Austin, just like he did last week with The Rock and Mick Foley. Reigns is in the gym. He's watching this unfold, and then he simply starts to walk away. We see him walk towards the exit in the gym, and Reigns turns out the lights, and that's how we go off the air with really just some fantastic angles here to end this show. So there you go. Roman Reigns clearly still training and still ready for this big match against The Rock. Meanwhile, everyone is questioning, can The Rock actually do this? Can he really beat Roman Reigns, including Steve Austin, Mick Foley, everyone? And The Rock basically had enough. So he gives Austin the rock bottom. Reigns is watching this all play out, turns off the lights. What does that mean for next week for the go-home episode of SmackDown before our Survivor Series pay-per-view and huge main event, Roman Reigns versus The Rock? So a great show here. I think we probably did pretty well with this one. Yeah, 86. Our big segments here, even this stuff in the middle was just kind of average. But look, I did this expecting, that we were going to get everything out of these final, basically 4 angles here. Segments that we had, and we did it. I mean, we got the 100, the 98, with Reigns, basically involved with Rock and Austin. So, yeah, one of our best shows yet. So that's not a surprise because that's, we're building up a Rock and Austin segments here, multiple segments with Rock and Austin. So, and if you haven't figured it out by now, remember, Foley asked Austin for the favor. We teased it on Raw, and that was Austin saying, all right, Mick, I will do the favor for you. Clearly, we're now led to believe that favor was coming to SmackDown to perhaps try to talk The Rock out of his retirement match, maybe, at Survivor Series against Roman Reigns. So a great show here. A big one for SmackDown, and we got a lot brewing heading towards Survivor Series and the Mae Young Classic. So let's see what we get to before we wrap up. All right. So, SmackDown, we strike gold, as you would expect. Let's see if there's anything quickly in here we need to note. Injury sidelines Taichi. Just signed with New Japan. Oh no. Taichi out over a year. Poor guy. Well, I guess it's if we would have signed him, his career could be different. But that's our fault on that. Glacier's retiring, so if you expect him to be Sasha Banks' opponent in the first round of the Mae Young Classic, that is not going to happen. He's retiring, so just spoiler alert on that. Let's look at our email here. The Rock has an opinion. Okay, so The Rock has an opinion. Billie Kay is a natural talker. She is worth giving promo time, in my opinion. All right, so the Iconics, we bring them back, and clearly at SmackDown, The Rock realizes we got a star on our hands here. So Billie Kay, we need to keep that in mind. Anything The Rock says, we're going to take into account. So that's good. I'll remember that as I book forward. Drug test fee, SmackDown 5.80. Nice. Taichi is injured, as we know. Cooling down period almost over. So we're almost there. Oh, something I forgot to do. So, for everyone that was wondering, we mentioned that NXT TakeOver, that was something that we had talked about and how, let's see, actually I'm going to go to this here. We talked about in NXT that we were keeping Raquel Gonzalez down so she could lose the title to someone at TakeOver. And so we are going to show you exactly what we're going to do with that now. Let's see here. Oh my goodness, why do I always do this? I'm looking right at it. There it is, Events and TV. So I always do this, and I'm like, I cannot find it, but there it is. So let's look at our recent TakeOver and the results. Man, I did it again. Show history. My goodness, I'm sorry, guys. I look at all these buttons, and I wish some of them were different so I could differentiate them, but sometimes it doesn't happen. TakeOver War Games. Here we go. So the show got a 64. And we do have a new champion because Candice LeRae defeated Raquel Gonzalez, Sarray, and B-Fab for the NXT Women's title. So that's what happened. We made that change. So Raquel is finally officially on the main roster now. And anyone else you want to kind of look at from this show, clearly Triple H is all over the place. Gigi Dolan beating Simone Johnson, the Rock's girl, in a cage match. So wow, that's something. So. Anything else of note here? Let's see. MSK defeated Walter and Jacob Fatu. I don't know if I ever even mentioned to you guys that I did sign Jacob Fatu from MLW. Wow, that's a tag team right there. Walter and Jacob Fatu. So MSK gets the win, though. I don't know how they did that against those two beasts, but there you go. Let's see. Escobar beat Kushida. That was the main event. Escobar and Kushida. All right, good for them. But I guess the NXT title not defended at War Games. So. All right, that was just a note. We had talked about that before with Raquel, but there you have it. So, all right, that was SmackDown, and on the next episode, it will be Raw, our Go Home Raw before Survivor Series, and I'm just really excited. I will say right now, the next month or so, which will include next week's television, Survivor Series, then through the Mae Young Classic, could be the most talked about month we've had in the series thus far. And I know I've kind of teased a lot of stuff that way, but it's just going to be something. I will tell you that. I'm excited how things have come together. And yeah, Survivor Series and the Mae Young Classic are going to deliver some pretty blockbuster moments, if I do say so myself. So be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And hopefully, as you see here, we upload these a little bit quicker now rather than having the lull. But the bulk recording, that's what I'm going with. So I'm recording these, kind of trying to do it all at once. That way I can spread them out, those kind of things. But on the next episode will be the Go Home edition of Raw before Survivor Series.